I was telling Brother Todd tonight that I didn't get my medical nap today, and that I may fall asleep preaching tonight. And he said that was okay as long as you didn't fall asleep during my preaching tonight. This past week, Brother Todd and I were talking about a certain subject, and in fact, he was the one that brought it up, and I thought it was so good that I would repeat it to you. He may repeat it in an entire sermon on Sunday, I have no idea, but I thought it was so good that you need to hear it. In 2001, at 9/11, you and I both know what took place. And Christians, by and far, went back to church because of the 9/11. In fact, they say something like 70-some% of Americans went back to church for 2 weeks, and then they stopped going again. And the point that he brought up that I thought was just so good is that people don't have a relationship with God, they have a relationship with church. So they went back to church, but never had a relationship with God. So God says, okay, fine, I'll take church away from you. Then where will your relationship be? As believers, our relationship is personal. It's me and the Lord. It's not me and my wife and the Lord. It's not me and Brother Todd and the Lord. It's not me and this church and the Lord. It's me and the Lord. And that's what people have forgotten. They think somehow that God is the church. No, God is not the church. We are the church, and we have to have a personal relationship with Christ. And so if you don't have that shored up, I'm sure Brother Todd will speak on that subject, and I thought it was a great subject. You'll benefit by it, I promise you. As you know, I started a series last Wednesday night called Looking Forward to the Next Opportunity, based on 2 Chronicles 7:14. If my people, didn't say if the world's people, if my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves, pray, seek my face, turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven, forgive their sin, and heal their land of whatever problem it has. Question, you're the church. Do you think our land is in need of healing? Our land is not just being ravaged physically in America through the coronavirus. It's being ravaged financially, morally, spiritually, and emotionally. Yet you wouldn't know it by talking to the church today. Very few churches nowadays preach about the moral, financial, spiritual, and emotional bankruptcy that occurs in America. Did you know that now catch this, 1 out of every 6 Americans, that's about 50 to 60 million Americans out of 330 million people here, 1 out of every 6 are dependent upon antidepressant drugs. Talk about emotional bankruptcy here in America. We're there. Did you know that fornication, that's unlawful sex outside of marriage, adultery, unlawful sex within a marriage, and alternative lifestyles are accepted as normal now here in America, even amongst the church? Talk about being ravaged morally, and the church doesn't even seem to see it. By the way, Jesus said it would be that way right before his return. First, there would be a great desire to see his return amongst the few who were looking for it. Then, great doubt about his return from skeptics. And lastly, great anguish around the world, just like it was before the time of the flood. Note what Jesus said to his own in Luke chapter 17, verses 22 through 26. He said unto his disciples, and it's pointed at us as believers, he says, the days will come when you shall desire to see one of the days of the sons of man, and you shall not see it. And they shall say to you, see here or see there, go not after them, nor follow them. For as the lightning that lighteneth out of the one part under heaven shineth unto the other part under heaven, so also shall the Son of Man be in his day. But first, Jesus said, right before his return, must he suffer many things and be rejected of this generation, talking about his own crucifixion. And then he adds in verse 26, and as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be also in the days of the Son of Man. There are 4 similarities between the time right before the event of the flood and the return of Christ. Note Genesis 6, 1 through 5. Verse 1. And it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, notice that, right before the return of Christ, the Bible says there would be an explosion in population just like it was in the days of Noah. According to population experts, the population of the world during the time of Christ was around 250 million people. 1,000 years later after Christ, the population grew to 335 million, a mere 85 million in 1,000 years. 500 years after that, in 1500 AD, the population grew to 480 million, a mere 145 million in 500 years. For the next 400 years, from 1500 to 1900 AD, we doubled our population, finally hitting the 1 billion mark in 1900. Thus, it took almost 2,000 years, starting at around 250 million people, to finally reach a population of 4 times that, or 1 billion people. Now, in a little over 100 years, from 1900 to 2020, 120 years if you would, we've gone from 1 billion to 8 billion. Talking about an explosion in population. As it was in the days of Noah, Jesus said, so shall it be when the Son of Man returneth. Note verse 2 of Genesis chapter 6. It says that the sons of God, meaning fallen angels, saw the daughters of men that they were fair, and they took them wives of all that they chose. Meaning these women didn't reject these demons that wanted to come in onto them. Right before the return of Christ, there would be an explosion in the paranormal mixed with sex, just like it was in the days of Noah. Meaning sexual freedom was off the charts. Men and women were having sex with anything and everything. Sound like the Burning Man event that takes place every year in America and across this world? Note verses 3 and 4 of Genesis chapter 6. And the Lord said, my spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he is also flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same became mighty men which were of old, men of renown. Right before the return of Christ, there would be an explosion in the demonic deception of women, just like it was in the days of Noah. By the way, all you have to do is look at our Congress today and know there's a demonic deception amongst women. Verse 5, and God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. Now, these are all things that took place in Noah's day right before the flood hit. These are the same things that are taking place in our day. Number 4, right before the return of Christ, there would be an explosion in pure debauchery. And God saw, verse 5, that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of his thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. Right before the event of the flood, explosion in pure debauchery, wickedness occurred. The same is true in this day and age. Again, there are 4 similarities between the time right before the event of the flood and the return of Christ. If ever we were there, it's now. In fact, when Jesus gave his disciples his 30th parable called the widow and the judge, he finished the parable with the following in Luke chapter 18 and verse 8. Jesus said, I tell you that he will avenge them speedily. Nevertheless, Jesus said, when the Son of Man cometh, shall he find faith on the earth? It's a rhetorical question. The answer is no, not even amongst Christians. Now, I said all that to say this: things are out of control everywhere. Question is, how should we react in such times as believers? The answer is simple, really. This is the believer's time to excel spiritually. Remember 2 Chronicles 7:14? God didn't say, if the world's people. It said, if my people. Anytime trials come into our life, this is our time. This is an opportunity for us individually to excel spiritually. I also gave you 1 Peter 1:6-7 last Wednesday, where it tells us that some of our rewards in heaven come from our response to our trials here on earth. Listen to what Peter said in 1 Peter 1:6-7. Wherein ye greatly rejoice, though now for a season, if need be, you're in heaviness through manifold temptations. He said in verse 7, that the trial of your faith, the testing of your belief in God and His Word, being much more precious than of gold that perisheth, though it be tried with fire, notice these next three words, might be found unto praise and honor and glory at the appearing of Jesus Christ. According to Peter, if trials are more precious than money, and they are, then every time we see our trials as opportunities and we respond correctly, we get a raise when Jesus returns. Think about that. Let me give you tonight a third reminder as to why we need to see our trials, and in particular this coronavirus, as an opportunity. Turn to 1 Thessalonians 2:17-18. Notice what Paul said. He said, but we, that's all of us, brethren, being taken from you for a short time in presence, not in heart, endeavored the more abundantly to see your face with great desire. Paul said, listen, I won you folks to Christ there in Thessalonica. And I've been away for a while, and I can't wait to get back to you to see how much you've grown in grace and all the rest of it. He said in verse 18, wherefore we would have come unto you, even I, Paul, once and again, but Satan hindered us. Now that act on God's part, where He allows the devil to try us, is nothing but a revealer of our Christianity. By the way, this wasn't the only time that Paul was hindered by Satan. Listen to 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verses 7-9. Paul said this, he said, and lest I should be exalted above measure, God wanted to keep me humble. Reaching the world for Christ might have went to my head, and I would have thought I was doing it. And so God was merciful enough to allow Satan to buffet me. And even though I prayed and asked Him 3 times to take this trial away, God said, no, my grace is sufficient. And lest I should be exalted above measure through the abundance of the revelations, there was given to me a thorn in the flesh, the messenger of Satan, to buffet me, lest I should be exalted above measure. For this thing I besought the Lord thrice, that it might depart from me. And God said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, Paul. My strength is made perfect in weakness. Most gladly, therefore, Paul said, will I rather glory in my infirmities than in the power of Christ may rest upon me. Wouldn't that be nice if all Christians gloried in their infirmities? It doesn't happen. Be nice if it happened, but it rarely happens. And that's because Christians forget that all trials, tribulations, persecutions, these are nothing more than opportunities for us to excel spiritually. And if you would just look at it the way God presents it, you would react properly. You would not only humble yourself more, pray more, seek God's face, turn from your wicked ways more. I mean, this is an opportunity to do all those things according to 2 Chronicles 7:14. You would also realize that you got a raise coming when you get to glory. 1 Peter 1:6-7. And not only that, trials are good because it reveals the Christian in your Christianity. Did you catch that? Trials offer us a chance to see how much Christian is in our Christianity. Want to know how a real Christian really reacts when trials come? Check yourself and how you react when you're tried, and you'll know how much Christian is in your Christianity. Arrogance, pride, self-righteousness, these are the things that trials reveal in a believer's life. Arrogance comes out. self-righteousness, pride. When those things come out, that's a good thing, because God is revealing to us how much Christian we actually have in our Christianity, and we need to shore it up. So trials are good. It's an opportunity to fix your pride, an opportunity to fix your arrogance, an opportunity to fix your self-righteousness. You remember John Mark in Acts chapter 15? John Mark, who eventually wrote the book of Mark, John Mark went with Barnabas and Paul on the first missionary journey. But John Mark didn't have a whole lot of Christian in his Christianity when he went, because when he got to Galatia and the persecution came upon all three of those guys, Barnabas, Paul, and John Mark himself, John Mark left. He quit, went back home. When Paul and Barnabas were ready in Acts chapter 15 to go on their second missionary journey, Barnabas said, hey, listen, let's take John Mark with us again. And Paul said, no way. That guy's Christianity was just revealed on the first missionary journey. And of course, Barnabas, being the gracious brother that he was, says, well, I know, but this gives him an opportunity to fix that and to go forward. Paul said, no, I ain't going to deal with it. Now, Paul had some flaws. That would have been one of his. Thank God for the Barnabases. There would have been no Gospel of Mark had it not been for Barnabas saying, listen, you realized that your failure on the first missionary journey showed how much Christianity you really had. And it wasn't very good, was it, John Mark? And John Mark said, no, sir, Barnabas, it wasn't very good, but I'm willing to fix that thing. See, that's what trials are good for. It reveals our arrogance. It reveals our shortcomings. And anytime these things are revealed to us through these coronaviruses or financial reversals or health reversals, all the rest of it, that's always a good thing. This is why we should always be looking forward to the next opportunity. That's the name of this series. Always looking forward for the next trial, the next opportunity for us to excel spiritually, to fix the things in our lives that wouldn't have gotten fixed had the trials not revealed them. One of the great reasons why God allows us to go through trials is to test our Christianity, to see what we're made of. God receives no pleasure afflicting anyone, saint or sinner. Yet as painful as trials and afflictions are, He uses them to achieve His purpose in all our lives, if only we can see it. I can think of a ton of Christians right now. They're at where I was in my life as a Christian. When trials came, it revealed my arrogance. It revealed my self-righteousness. It revealed my pride. And I walked away with all those things, not fixing them back years ago in my life. But at least they were revealed to me and gave me a chance and an opportunity down the road to fix those things. And I believe I have. You can fix yours too. If you failed miserably in some trial that God brought your way, thank Him. Thank Him that He revealed to you your shortcoming. Get on your knees, tell the Lord, I want to do better. I want to do the John Mark thing. I know I failed on the first missionary journey, but I know God's not done with me yet, so Lord, use me again. And God will send a Barnabas by just to make sure that happens. Question: will you allow this time of unprecedented times to put the Christian back in your Christianity? It's an opportunity. Will you take advantage of that opportunity? Looking forward to the next opportunity. I don't always pass the test. In fact, there's often signs in front of my life, construction going on, go slow. Go slow by Brad, because I've been working on him and he ain't doing so well. But at least it reveals to me that I'm not doing so well, and that's an opportunity to fix that thing. So I've given you 3 things to look forward to as far as opportunities. Number one, 2 Chronicles 7:14. If my people, if you start humbling yourself more, praying more, seeking God's face, turning from your wicked way more than you ever have, then that's an opportunity because of this trial or whatever trial you're going through. If you continue to respond correctly to all these trials because you see it as an opportunity, God says, wait till glory. Wait till you meet me in the air when I rapture you out, or you die and go to heaven and get your new body. Wait till we meet and you realize how many crowns I'm actually giving you because you responded properly. You saw your trials as an opportunity. And number three, we talked about it tonight. Trials reveal the Christian in your Christianity. How you and I react to every trial that comes our way, not just a coronavirus, maybe a financial reversal, maybe somebody hates you, doesn't matter what the trial is, doesn't matter what the suffering is, doesn't matter what the pain is, doesn't matter if God allows Satan to enter your life and mess with you like he did with Job or Paul. The end result is it will reveal the Christian in your Christianity. And that's a good thing because we all need things to fix. And only trials will bring that out. Well, it's good to be with you again tonight. I hope you didn't fall asleep. I didn't fall asleep. I felt like it because I didn't take my medical nap today. But you know what? If you got what we talked about, then that's a good thing. God bless you, folks. Love you. Father, thank you for our time tonight, and thank you for those that viewed, and I pray that you'll have them take these things to heart and go forward for good and for God. In Jesus' name, amen.